Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today I decided to bring this video which some of you guys have been requesting me for a while now, almost like a year, which is a video on how to web scrape using JavaScript and a library that is very famous called Puppeteer. I do have a 5-video series on this topic that I made right in the beginning of when I started posting videos, and I really liked that series, and the people who watched it also really liked it. But as many of my subscribers pointed out, I had to remove 2 or 3 out of the 5 videos because I was very stupid. I scraped websites that didn't allow scraping, and those companies obviously let me know because I publicly posted on YouTube. So in this tutorial, I won't be scraping any websites that I feel like would come to me and ask me to take down the video. I'll be either scraping my own old website, which is this one over here. I don't post anymore over here, but like it's a website that I created in the past. And some other websites that I feel like they allow scraping and won't cause any troubles. Now, before we get into the tutorial, if you guys could leave a like and subscribe, I would massively appreciate it because it would help me push my videos to more people. And yeah, that's basically it. Let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so Puppeteer is a very famous library, as you can see over here. It is used for many different reasons, not just like projects that are based on scraping, but also to get data and gather information. It is very useful, and also to test code, right? If you want to test it out, you can use Puppeteer as well. Now, what happens is we're going to be going over the basics in the beginning and then start implementing some solutions to more interesting things. For example, we're going to be using Puppeteer to not only help us gain data, and in order to get it started, I would open up VS Code over here, as you can see, and I already created a very simple project. It doesn't have anything. It's just a file called index.js without anything inside. But basically what I did is I opened up my terminal on VS Code. I wrote npm init-y, pressed enter. It created the package.json file, and then after this was done, I just wrote npm install Puppeteer like this. And when you install this package, it might take a bit because it also installs something called Chromium, which is a web browser that is going to be used to scrape, right? And it might take a bit, but it isn't supposed to take like a very long time. And when you have it installed, because I already have it, you'll see that in your package.json, you should see that the dependency Puppeteer is installed. And you can see that this is the version that I'm using so that you can compare it to yours. So then what I did is I just created this file called index.js, and here is where we're going to be writing actually all of our code. So I'm going to start out with how do you set up a project to be able to scrape? Well, we first need to initialize the Puppeteer library, right? So I'm going to say const Puppeteer equals to require Puppeteer, like this. Puppeteer, so Puppeteer over here. And when we require this library, we'll just come down here at the bottom. And the first thing that I want to show you guys is the format of a Puppeteer application usually runs as following. You'll have a function that is created like this. It's just an anonymous function that returns something at the end. So you need to put 2 parentheses like this. And it is a asynchronous function. So I'm going to write async over here. And let's create the function with the arrow syntax. And this is basically the format. I know it looks kind of weird for most people who are not familiar with this, but basically we're just creating an anonymous function and making it asynchronous. Now, most of our code will run inside of this function. And the reason why we have it asynchronous is because most of the actions that you can, or the functions that you can use with Puppeteer, they return a promise, which makes sense because when you're web scraping, you're telling a bot to wait for something to happen to then take some sort of action. And that's kind of what async await does. You're basically telling your bot to wait for something to finish occurring so that it can move on. And that will be able to simulate some sort of real life behavior. So inside of this async function, the first thing we'll always have to do is initialize our browser. So tell our bots to open up a browser. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a variable called browser, like this. Set it equal to await, and then Puppeteer and then dot launch. So launch is a function that exists inside of Puppeteer, and it basically obviously launches a browser. And you might see that for almost everything that we write, we're going to put in a wait so that it has some sort of steps, some sort of recipe to what the bot needs to do. It first launches the browser. When the browser finishes launching, we'll then open a page, go to a website, and that kind of stuff, right? And one important thing about the launch function is that there's two ways of launching a browser in Puppeteer. There's the headless way and the non-headless way. What does that mean? Headless basically means that the bot is going to run without you actually open up a browser in your computer and seeing everything happening. You can actually web scrape without seeing the stuff happening, the browser opening, going to the website, that kind of stuff. And that's actually what most people do, but for the purposes of the tutorial, I want to be able to see what the bot is doing as it runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the headless property of the browser to be equal to false, so that when we open the browser, we'll be able to see it opening. Now, what I want to do is I want to basically just open a new tab in the browser immediately when it opens. So I'm going to say const page is equal to await then browser dot new page. This is a function that just opens a new tab in your browser, and it's pretty simple. Now that we have a page, we can actually tell this page to go somewhere. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can just basically tell the bot to write a link in the page, in the tab, and just go to that link. And the way we do this is pretty simple. We'll just say await page dot go to. And as you can see, it's pretty interesting because Puppeteer chose function names to be very related to what it's doing, right? New page, launch, go to. So that's one of the best benefits, in my opinion, of using Puppeteer, because it's a really well-designed library. And then for the go-to, we just need to put over here a link, which is the link to the website that we want to go. So as the first example for this tutorial, I'm just going to script my own website. And by the way, all of this information is outdated, as I mentioned. It's like things that I did back in the day. You can see like this is literally my YouTube channel, my old projects and everything. If you want to check it out, you can check it out, but all of this information is outdated, and for that reason, I'll be scraping this website. So what we want to say is we want to tell our bots to go to this link over here. So I'm going to put https://machadopedro.com, and it should go to this link. Then we can do whatever we want with this page. The page variable over here allows us to grab information inside of the page, which then leads us to getting data from, or scraping data from the page. Now, the first thing that I want to show you guys is something that is it's one of the simplest things you can do, but it's also really interesting, which is taking a screenshot of the page. It's one of the first examples that the documentation shows, and I think it's really cool because it just shows you the power of using a web scraper. So I want to show this really quick to you guys before we get into scraping data. So what we can do is basically we can come over here, say await, and then just say that we want to tell my page to screenshot, which is a function, and when it screenshots the page of the website, I want to save it to a path called, let's just call it my website.png or JPEG. You can actually choose the extension. So this is what I'm doing. I'm going to this website, taking a screenshot. It's going to save over here in my project, and I'm going to call it this. And let's see if this actually works. One thing we need to do is we need to actually tell our browser to close at the end, because we don't want to keep it open. We want to tell the bot to run, do all the stuff it does, and then close. So to close the browser, as you guys might expect by the easiness of the function names that I already showed you guys, it's literally just await browser.close. And it's a function that just closes the browser. So in order to run this project, since it's a NodeJS project, I'm just going to say node index.js, and which is the name of the file that I created, and it will run the file and run everything automatically. You should see that when I press enter, it is going to launch a browser into my computer. I'm not going to touch anything. It goes to my website, takes a screenshot, and then closes the browser. Let's take a look to see if this actually worked. If I come over here, open this up, you should see that we have the mywebsite.png file now, and when I open it up, it is exactly a screenshot of my website, which is amazing, right? So I'm going to close this right now, delete this file because, like, why would I need this picture? And what I want to show you guys is the basics of getting data, querying, selecting tags, and getting actual HTML from the page. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you guys in regards to accessing like HTML tags inside of the page and grabbing information is by coming over here to your code. And the way you do this is basically you need to create a function that will evaluate the page. And what I mean by evaluate is it will take a look at the page and grab all the information you want when you call that function. So we're going to create this function over here, and let's call it, as an example, just to show you guys the basics, let's try to query this piece of text over here, right? I just want to query this, get that information, and console log it through the bot. So how do we do that? Well, we need to first create a function and call it something that makes sense, like grab, like paragraph. It doesn't make sense, but let's just say grab paragraph. Then set it equal to await, and then we say that we want to evaluate the page, and the page.evaluate returns a function, a callback function inside of here, as you can see. And this function, we can write all the things that we want to do when we evaluate the page. So the first thing I want to do is I want to grab whatever text is inside of here. So how do we do that? Well, with web scraping, you need to be really good with taking a look at a website and understanding its HTML. So I'm going to zoom out a bit, just so we can see more stuff at the same time. Basically, if I'm on Chrome, which I am, I can use the developer tool to inspect element and take a look at all of the different, like the skeleton, the structure that this HTML page is made out of. So what I want is I want this thing over here. So I'm just going to select it, and I can see that it is a paragraph tag. And the thing is, it doesn't seem to have any classes or IDs attached to it. It's just a paragraph tag individually, right? And then it is very important that we are using stuff like classes and IDs so that we can identify which specific thing from the page we're trying to get. But one thing I can do is, you can see that this paragraph is inside of a div with a class name of this thing over here. So what I can do is I can basically tell my bot to look in the page where there's a div with this class name, and then grab the only paragraph that is inside of it, which is this thing over here, right? The p tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this class name, come over here to our Visual Studio Code, and then I'm going to say const, then let's call it paragraph. I'm going to call it PG for paragraph. Tag, I'm going to create a variable called paragraph tag, set it equal to document. And here's the important part. When you're web scraping, you can access the elements in the page by using the document object that exists inside of JavaScript. And you can use all the different methods like get element by ID, get class name, get element by class, or you can use the query selector, which is the thing that I love using the most, because you can basically grab any kind of element directly by using this function. And the query selector, it takes in one piece of information, which is a string containing either the tag or the ID or the class of an element that you want to grab. So it's going to grab that information and set it equal to this variable over here. So technically, we just want to grab the element with this class name over here, which I just copied from our HTML, because this class name over here is this whole div. And then to access the text inside of the paragraph tag, all we have to do is we just have to grab the div and then grab the paragraph inside of it. So I'm going to say that I want to select the element with this class name. And the important thing as well is when it has more than one class name, as you can see it has two, we need to unite them by putting a dot right in between it. And also, even if it's a single class name, we have to put a dot at the front, right? And we not only want to grab this class name, but we also want to grab the paragraph inside of it. So I'm going to press space and then say that I want to access the paragraph, the p tag inside of this class. If you're not familiar with accessing elements like this, it is a very important topic. It is widely used in CSS. It is very important that you get familiar with it. So I would just recommend playing around with it, seeing what you can do with it. It's going to be really useful when you're web scraping. So we're now saying that we want to set the PG tag equal to this tag over here. So now that we have access to the tag, what we can do is we can actually access information about it. For example, each tag in HTML, like a paragraph tag, has a property called the inner.html, which actually represents the text inside of it, or whatever is inside of this tag. We can also use the inner text, which doesn't even autocomplete, but it's actually something that you can use. But I'm going to use the inner.html so that we can take a look at what it looks like. And what I want to do is I want to return from this grab paragraph function the inner.html from this tag. And at the end, after we create this function, I just want to console log the result from it. So I'm going to say console log.grab paragraph, and let's take a look to see what happens. My expectation is that the bot is going to open the page, then it's not going to screenshot, I'm going to delete this. Then it's going to evaluate the page, grab the tag, the paragraph tag that contains this information over here, this little thing over here, set it equal to the PG tag, and inside of this function, we're going to return whatever element or whatever HTML is inside of that tag, which should be representing this text over here. And then at the end, I'm just console logging whatever this function returns. So let's take a look to see if it works. I'm going to clear my terminal, run node index.js. It's going to open up the browser. Let's see. It goes to the page. It is loading. And you can see that it actually works perfectly. It closes the browser and it console logs the little paragraph that I wrote over there. Now you can see that it includes some tags, right? For example, the word coding apparently for some reason is in bold. So there's a B tag over here. If we wanted to only grab the text without any HTML inside of it, let's try it out by using the inner text property that I mentioned. And let's run it again. And let's see what difference occurs. Well, it's going to open up the same page. Wait for it to load as well, but now it doesn't include the B tag because it's not looking for HTML. It's looking purely for text. So that's basically the basics of how to grab elements in a page. We're gonna do some more advanced stuff right now. So I would just play around with grabbing different elements. If you wanna try to grab links, trying to grab things with IDs instead of classes, just playing around with it. I am going to show you guys how to deal with whenever you want to query select many elements at the same time. So for example, if there's a bunch of elements with the same class name, I'm going to show you guys how to select all of them and deal with that. But for now, just play around with selecting one element and come back to the video. Okay, so as the first example of grabbing a lot of information at the same time, I want to use still my website just to show you guys something. So what I want to use is, if you come over here to this part of the page, which is the About Me page, it has a bunch of lists, like it has two lists over here, which includes like technologies and all, which is good because we can basically query this list, and I want to grab each of these items individually and console log it inside of my bot. So how exactly would we do this? Well, let's do the first step of every web scraper, like every web scraping project, which is to analyze the page. If we open up the inspect element and we take a look at what this list is made out of, we can see that we have a UL tag and a bunch of LI tags for each item in the list. So that's good because we can query all of them. But to specify which of them we want, we can see that there's a class called row backend, and inside of it, there's the UL with all of the LI items. So what I want to do is, in order to specify that we want to query all of these items over here, we can come over here, we can say grab technologies, which is what we're grabbing. Then instead of using query selector, we're going to use the query selector all. And the important thing is that when you put query selector all, it's going to grab all of the items in your page that matches the same like the same identifier over here, which is what we're going to have, because we're going to put that we want to grab all the items where are inside of the class name row backend, and we do need to put the dot in between them like this. Then we want to say that we want to grab all the items that are inside of the UL tag, because all of these items are inside of a UL tag. And then we want to specify that we want to grab each LI items inside of it. So I'm just going to put another space and LI. you recognize that I only put spaces when I want to say that I want to grab something inside of that element, right? So the row backend, we don't put space because they are the same item, right? But if I want to say that I want to grab a UL inside of this div, I need to put a space and then put the UL. And then I want to grab the LI, so I do the same thing. And when I say query selector all, I'm just grabbing all of the list items from that list. So I'm going to change the name of this to tech tags to mean it's the technology tags. And right now, what this is going to return is it's going to return a list of the HTML tags. But I don't want to do that. I want to return back a list of just the items, right? Just this items over here. So what I can do is I'm going to create an array over here called technologies, and it's going to start empty. And then I want to grab the list of tags and loop through it by saying for each. And for each tag, I want to basically grab the tag itself, and I want to push to the technologies list the tag.inner text like this. And what should happen is it's going to loop through all the tags that match this thing over here, and it's going to push the inner text of it inside of this array so that at the end we can just return the technologies array. So return technologies. And when we say now grab technologies and just console log it, what we should see is we should actually see a list of all the technologies that we have in the backend. So I'm going to run and let's see what happens. I'm going to push this over here. It should wait for it to load, analyze, and as you can see, it works perfectly. We can even change this. These are only the backend technologies because this is how I made my website. I separated them in between backend and frontend. But if you want to grab the front-end ones, you can just change. You can see that the front-end technologies have a class name of row frontend instead of row backend. So I can just change this to row frontend. And when I save this and run it again, it should actually scrape out the list of the front-end technologies. Let's just check to see if it works. And yeah, it works perfectly. So this is a very easy way of querying a lot of information. And again, if this is the first time of you learning it, I recommend playing around with it. And you guys can also play around with other websites like Google, Facebook, I don't know, other websites like that. They're great places for you to scrape because it is really like you can just play around with it and just do whatever you want. Just don't record it and post it on YouTube like I did, because then they'll probably ask you to take it down. So when you feel comfortable understanding this specific syntax over here, remember that you just query the information, loop through it, push it to an array, return it back so that you can see that information over here. We're gonna start going into some more action-based things that you can do with a bot, meaning that, for example, you can create web scraping is not just grabbing information, right? And what I mean by that is Puppeteer isn't just for web scraping. Web scraping means that you grab data from a website, grab information from a website. But Puppeteer can also can be mainly used for browser automation. And what I mean by browser automation, you can actually tell the bot to do stuff in the website. And I mean like write stuff on inputs, click buttons, change stuff in the website, which is really cool. And I'm gonna show you guys some clear examples of how you could do this. Okay, so as you can see, I opened up here a website, which the link will be in the description. And I used this in the previous series that I made, and I'm gonna use it again because I feel like it's a great website to actually like practice, and I feel like it will be really helpful for you guys. So this website's called Quotes to Scrape. It is basically just a website full of like different things that you can use to scrape. So that, for example, there's like a login page, but you don't even need to have an account. You just like put stuff over here and it will log in. So it's basically a place to practice your web scraping or your browser automation skills. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with this. The first thing I really want to try out is just first of all scraping the name of the authors for all of these quotes over here, right? Just this. Actually, maybe the name of the author and the text, just to get it started. So in order to do that, we're gonna come over here to our code. I'm gonna delete what we had previously because we're not gonna be using it anymore, and I'm gonna change the link for the website to be this one over here. So let's say quotes to scrape. we'll just put this link over here. Now, what we need to do first is what I've been teaching you guys. You need to analyze the web page. So I'm going to inspect element over here. We're going to take a look at what is happening. So we have a div called column medium 8 or col md8, and it contains all the quotes, which is perfect for us because we now have identified the container of all of the quotes. And inside of it, each item has a separate div, as you can see, with the class called quote. So if I query select all and use the class quote as the identifier, it should return back a list full of each of these items over here. So that's amazing. Let's start by creating over here and saying grab quotes, right? We need to first we go to the website, and then we're gonna create this function called grab quotes, then say page await page dot evaluate, because we need to evaluate the page. And then what we need to do is we need to basically create the function inside of here, which is going to serve as the place for us to get all the elements inside of the web page. So initially, I'm just going to come over here and say const quotes equals to document dot query all, query selector all, and then just put the dot quote, because remember that when we're using the query selector all, we put the tag of the element that appears many times. So there's many elements called quotes, so it will select all the elements with the class name quote. And inside of this element called quote, we can see that we have a few things. We have a span, actually two spans, and a div. The div is just for these tags that exist inside of each quote. And the spans are divided into first the quote, and then the author, right? It includes some information about the author. So we're going to play around with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that same kind of format that we were doing before, which is basically we're going to create an array called quotes array and set it equal to an empty array. Then we're going to loop through all the tags and say quote tag. And for each tag that we have, like for each quote tag, we want to get some specific information. Remember that each, this variable over here, quote tag, is equal to this div over here, because it's what we're getting. So for each quote, what we want to do is we want to access both of its spans. And it's going to have two spans inside of it, because this is how it is the format in the website. So what we can do with this is we can first of all grab the first span, which we know is the one containing the actual quote. So we're going to say, const actual quote is equal to quote tag, like this, dot, and you can actually select something inside of this. So the way we're going to address this is the following. We're going to use a query selector all inside of this div to grab all the spans, and we know that the first one in that list will be the one containing the quote, and the second one will contain the author. So we can do it like this. We can say const quote info, let's call it quote info, is equal to document dot query select all. Actually, not document dot query select all, it's just a quote tag dot query select all. The reason why is because we don't want to get all the spans in the website. We want to grab all the spans that exist inside of this tag over here. When we use a document, we're looking at the whole website. But when we use another tag that we have and we select something from inside of it, it will only look for the elements inside of this specific tag. So over here, what we want to do is we want to grab all the span elements, and we can use span like this, just like how we can use a class name or an ID. So we'll grab both of them, and we'll know that whatever comes back from this array over here, this query select all, the first actual quote, let's call it actual quote, will be equal to this array quote info and the first element of it, because it will always be the first element. As you can see over here, each quote contains two spans, and the first one is the quote. So we also know now that the second element will be the author. So actual author is equal to quote info 1, which is the second element. So now what we can do is we can just return back this information by pushing into the quotes array like this. We can say quotes array, like quotes array dot push, and for each tag we're destructuring this information, and we want to push back an object containing two pieces of information: the quote, which will be the actual quote like this, and we don't want to grab, like, this actual quote variable right now is just an HTML tag, so we want to grab the element inside of it. So how do we grab this thing over here? Well, I've taught you guys this already. We just say dot inner text like this, and it should work. Now we also want to put the author, so I'm going to say author, and we're going to grab the actual author. And there's just a minor difference, which is if you take a look over here, the actual author, or this pen, contains this over here, and it also contains this thing called the small. And we really just want to grab this thing over here, so we need to make some sort of changes, because this span, the first span includes just the quote, but we only want to get the author name, so we need to kind of destructure this part over here. So the way we do this is we're actually going to come here at the top, and I'm going to just open this up a little bit so you guys can see it better. But before we do anything with the author, we need to grab the whatever is inside of the small tag, and this is a good way for us to identify. We find what we can use to identify the information we want, and we use it. So we can say const author name is equal to actual author dot query, because we can query something, and we want to query the element with the name small, and this should actually return back that information. So instead of saying actual author, we say author name, and we need to grab the inner text in order to grab the actual name. So now what we're doing is we're pushing into this quotes array an object containing a quote and an author, which is a good format for us to have in our project. So now what we do is, after all of this, we're going to console log the grab quotes thing, like here. Grab quotes. But also, before anything, we need to return back, right? We need to, in this grab quotes, we need to return the quotes array, which is what we need to console log. So quotes array is the thing that we are returning, and I wrote return wrong. So return. Now that this is pretty much done, let's run it and let's see what happens. I'm going to clear this up. Let's run node index.js. It opens up Chromium. It closes immediately. It actually went super fast, but as you can see, it grabbed the correct information. We have the quote and we have the author, which is amazing. Now, just as an overview, what we did is we evaluated the page, because we need to do that. Then we first selected all the quotes that exist in this page. We created an array to hold the result that we want back. Then we looped through each of the quote elements, and we found out that if we, instead of this element, if we really just wanted the author name and the quote, we had to play around with the tags. So the first thing we did is we realized that for each quote tag inside of this, for each quote HTML element, there's two spans. One span includes the information about the quote, and the other one includes the information about the author. So we queried all the spans inside of the tag, and we knew that the first one was the quote, the second one was the author. Then we had to destructure the author name even more, because it wasn't the way that we wanted. So we selected the small element that exists in every author span, and we got that information. At the end, we just pushed that information as an object to our quotes array, and we returned it back so that we can finally console log it. So this is basically what we wanted to do, and it looks pretty nice. I hope this was a good exercise so that we can get even better with web scraping this website. But now I'm going to teach you guys a little bit more of like some actions that we can take on this website. For example, I find it interesting that we have this button over here, which is a login button. And when you click on it, it brings you to this login page, which you can input a username and a password and then try to log in. So what I want to do is I want to come to this page over here, click on this button, put some information for the username and the password, click on the login button, and log in to some sort of account. And I want the bot to do all of that on its own. So the way we do it is we're gonna come over here. I'm gonna delete everything that I just did, and I'll just initially show you guys a function that is very useful to start out with this part of Puppeteer, where you can actually make actions. So the function is a click function, and by the name you already know that it should be the one used to click this login button, and that's exactly what it does. We're going to inspect element over here, and we will take a look to see how can we get this login link and access it. So the way we can do it is there's a bunch of stuff over here, but most importantly there's this row header box over here. Then there's a div, which apparently is this one over here, code medium 4. Then there's a p tag, and finally an a tag. It's pretty difficult, right? It's actually pretty hard to even understand how can we make some identify this thing specifically, right? We can't say that we want to grab the element from this class because it might have other elements in this page with the same class name. So one way that we can do it is we can actually grab elements and identify them with very specific attributes. And one attribute that I see in this link that I don't see anywhere else in this web page is the fact that this link links to the login page, which is exactly what we want, right? We want to click on something that links us to the login page. And since we're not actually like scraping anything, we're just telling the bot to do certain actions, we don't actually need to evaluate the page. The evaluate function is mostly used just for scraping. When we want to do something like clicking on buttons, we can do it outside of that function. So over here, what we want to do is we want to call a function specifically from Puppeteer that allows us to click on elements, which is the let me just write it, page.click. This function is pretty simple. You just tell the page to click on an element and you put the selector over here. So like I was talking about, how are we going to select this link? Well, the best way would be to access this, some sort of, tell the thing to select a link tag or an a tag with this specific href. So the way we do it is we just say that we want to select an a tag over here. And then to specify some sort of attribute in that HTML tag, we open and close square brackets like this. And then we can put the name of the attribute like href, then set it equal to whatever value that attribute has, which in our case is /login. So it's going to look for in the page the element, which is an a tag with the href equal to this, and it's going to click on it. So we can test this out by opening this up and going to nodeindex.js. It opens up the thing, clicks on it really quick, and that was pretty dumb because we couldn't really see it, right? So I'm going to comment out the browser.close so that it doesn't close when it finishes doing all its tasks. So I'm going to open this up, run it again. Let's hope that it will work. And as you can see, it works perfectly. It automatically went to the first web page, clicked on the link, and now it's in the login page. So now that we have this working, I'm going to kill the terminal over here. I want to, first of all, put back the browser.close, and I want to basically grab whatever information exists inside of this login page. The two pieces of information that I want are the inputs and the button. So in order to grab the inputs, we're going to inspect element over here. Let's take a look at how we can identify it. And right off the bat, I can see that the username input has a name of username or an ID of username, which is even better. So actually what I can do is I can say I want to select an element with the ID username like this, and this will be the selector for the username. And password, I'm gonna guess it is similar. It has an ID called password, so I can select it like this. So this is how we're gonna do it. And how are we going to actually type on this input? Well, as you can imagine, Puppeteer has a function called page.type. And the type function is a bit different from the click one because what you do is you basically pass, first of all, an identifier. So we're going to pass the username identifier. Then we need to pass whatever text that we want to put inside of it. So as an example, let's write PedroTech over here. And we'll do the same for the password, but we'll put another password like this. And let's put just, I don't know, password 123. and let's see what happens. Let's not close it as well. Let's comment this browser.close off, and let's see if it works. So when we run the code, it opens up the bot, it goes to the page and automatically fills in the inputs with this information, which is really cool. But if you actually want to have a visual confirmation of them writing it, you can actually add a delay to this. I can come to this page.type, add a delay to as an object over here, like this, and give it a delay, for example, of 100. And you'll see that if I do this for both of them, it will actually show the bot a writing on it. So let's take a look. It will go to the page, and it starts writing as if it was an actual person. This is good because it might help prevent people, like websites, from detecting bots, since it's kind of writing like a human. But again, I don't know why you would do this, since you're trying to scrape a lot of information probably, or automate a lot of things. So maybe just going as fast as possible will be the best idea. So now that we wrote these two pieces of information into the page, into the input, I want to click on this button. So let's come over here, inspect it, take a look to see if we can find anything. And right off the bat, you guys can see that it is an input of type submit, and it has a value of login. I'm gonna make a guess and say that there aren't many inputs with the value of login other than this, because it's kind of weird for you to have a button called with a text saying login and not being a login button. So we're going to use this as our identifier. I'll just say await page.click, and inside of here I'll just say that I want to grab an input, and with the same like the same idea, the same way we like identified this link by accessing an attribute, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say that I want to grab the input with the attribute value, which is equal to login, like this. And since obviously I'm using double quotes twice, I'll make this first quote a single quote and the second and the one inside a double quote. So we'll save this, and let's take a look to see if it works. I'll just run my bot again. Let's see if it will log in, and it did. I don't know if you guys realized, but it actually did. And the reason why I know it logged in is because now this button is saying log out because it already logged in. And if I click on the back button, you'll see that it logged in as PedroTech. So it is working, and this is kind of like the basics of it, right? You're able now to scrape a lot of information. You're able to click on stuff, type on stuff, do a lot of stuff if you want to. This is a brief introduction as well to Puppeteer as a whole, and I really hope you guys were able to get a lot of value from it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. I just wanted to make this video because I felt like my series was completely lacking, because 3 out of the 5 videos were missing. And if you still want to check out the other videos, I'm gonna leave a link or just like show them here in the outro, so you can click on it. There's actually a pretty advanced one which I show you guys how to build a bot that beats like a typing speed website. So it actually types faster than humanly possible, and the website doesn't detect it. So if you want to check out the video, I'm gonna link it here at the end of the video. And yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next, and I see you guys next time.